Have you ever sat in silence, trying to understand how she just switched off? One moment she's holding your hand, calling you her everything, and then out of nowhere, she's cold, detached, texting slower, making excuses. You gave her your all, your time, your loyalty, your emotional support. You kept showing up, you were consistent, you were kind. You were there when no one else was, and yet she left. If you've felt this, if you've laid awake wondering, what did I do wrong? This video is for you. Men everywhere are drowning in emotional confusion because no one told us the truth. Not our teachers, not our parents, not society. And by the time we figure it out, we're broken, bitter, drained, or worse, completely lost. Relationships today are not what you think they are. That love you thought was forever. That loyalty you believed would be returned. That idea of just being a good guy is enough. It's a lie. And the longer you believe it, the deeper you'll sink into resentment and regret. Before we begin unpacking these powerful truths, comment, "I choose strength," in the comments to declare that you're no longer going to walk through life blind. Number 1. Women don't love unconditionally. You thought love would be enough. You truly did. You believed that by showing up consistently, by being kind, by offering your loyalty, your time, your warmth, your resources, your heart, you were building something real, something that couldn't be shaken. And then one day, you saw her eyes change. Not suddenly, but gradually. She began to look past you when you spoke. Her touch became routine. Her tone turned polite instead of passionate. You ignored it at first, thought maybe she was tired, stressed, distracted. You waited it out. You gave her more. You tried harder. You thought if you just kept loving her the way you did at the start, she would remember. But she didn't. Because what no one told you, what society shields you from, what parents fail to mention, what friends awkwardly avoid saying outright, is that women do not love without condition. They never have. They never will. It is not cruelty. It is biology. They are wired to respond to who you are now, not who you were when you first met, not what you did in the past, not how you made them feel on vacation 6 months ago. Her love is transactional, whether you want to admit it or not. It is based on relevance, presence, perception, status, strength, and consistency of value. Not the emotions you feel when you look at her, not the tears you hold back, not the poems you write, not the promises you make when you're on your knees begging her to see you again. You could carry her world on your shoulders, and she will still walk away the moment she feels you are no longer the mountain she imagined. This isn't pessimism. This is the clarity you never got. You saw love as sanctuary. She sees love as an investment, and when the returns stop, so does the relationship. She needs to feel like she is gaining proximity to something powerful, to a man who moves through life with direction. The moment that direction fades, the attraction fades with it. She will always choose momentum over memory. Think about your own story. How many times have you watched a woman adore a man who treated her poorly, yet she chased him like he held the key to her soul? And yet you, the kind one, the available one, the man who made time, who listened, who waited, who stayed, were discarded like the background noise she could no longer hear. You've seen it. You've lived it. You've told yourself it was bad luck, wrong timing, incompatibility, her trauma. But deep down, a whisper remained. You were never enough for her the way you were, and now you know why. Because being enough isn't about love. It's about value. It's about how you make her feel about herself when she's around you. When you become the man who orients his world around her, she becomes the sun, and you become the satellite. And satellites don't excite, they orbit. When you drop your mission to make her your mission, she sees it not as devotion, but desperation. She won't always tell you. Sometimes she doesn't even realize it herself, but she will begin to feel less drawn, less admired, less emotionally pulled. And then she'll start looking elsewhere, maybe not to another man immediately, but to anything that makes her feel the way your ambition used to, your strength used to, your clarity used to. She'll dive into distractions, focus on herself, start saying she just needs space, and you'll keep trying to hold on to her with the same soft love that once made her smile. But now it makes her sigh, because the harshest truth of all is this: women are not built to stay out of gratitude. They are built to seek alignment, and alignment shifts constantly based on your actions. So how do you stop this cycle? You become the kind of man who builds his world with or without her. You stop giving your best to women who have not earned it. You stop believing that your love is supposed to be the glue. It's not. Your mission is the glue. Your standards are the glue. Your refusal to shrink just to be liked. That's the glue. Women follow men who are hard to influence emotionally, but soft enough to hold presence, who feel deeply but do not collapse under pressure, who can love with depth but never forget the order of their values. This doesn't mean you walk around heartless. It means you walk with hierarchy. Your peace comes first. Your vision comes second. Her place is earned through alignment with those two, not through looks, not through tears, not through potential. She earns your love the same way you were always expected to earn hers, by showing up with value. The moment you start choosing yourself first, everything changes. The energy shifts. She can feel it. You no longer need her admiration to validate your path. And that paradoxically makes her want to earn it more, because love given freely has no weight. Love protected by principle that demands reciprocation, that maintains standards. That's the love she cannot walk away from. Not because it's manipulative, but because it's rare. You were born into a world that told you to seek peace through people. But peace is internal. It's earned by the man who knows that he is not defined by who stays or who leaves, but by who he remains, regardless. When you love from abundance, you no longer fear abandonment. When you operate from clarity, rejection no longer ruins you. It reveals what is misaligned. And that's freedom. That's where you begin. Number 2, nice guys are her last choice. You grew up believing kindness was the key, that if you were gentle, respectful, understanding, always available, that one day someone would see you for the rare, good-hearted soul you are. You thought love was something earned through quiet sacrifice, that the more you gave, the more you would be chosen. So you spent years being the shoulder to cry on, the man who answered every late-night call, the one who never interrupted, who always paid, who waited patiently while she explored every other option. And in the back of your mind, you told yourself, one day she'll see. One day she'll realize I'm the one who never left. But she didn't. She never did. Because women don't fall for consistency. They fall for presence, for polarity, for energy that challenges them, not coddles them. And you, in your quest to be the man she said she wanted, became invisible. You blended into the emotional background. You were safe, predictable, sweet, but you didn't make her feel. And women don't stay where they feel nothing, no matter how logical, no matter how stable, no matter how generous the man is. She craves tension, a dance of strength and depth, not a quiet contract of unspoken servitude. You became the emotional sponge she leaned on when the men she truly wanted broke her heart. And she thanked you for it. She told you you're such a great guy. She told you she wished she could love you the way you love her. And those words felt like daggers wrapped in silk, because they sounded like praise, but they echoed as rejection. You were the backup plan, the plan B, the emotional placeholder until she found someone who made her heart race instead of relax. And the irony is, she didn't even mean to do it maliciously. You trained her to see you as secondary. You set the tone. You agreed to the friend zone. You laughed off your own boundaries. You said, "I just want you to be happy," even when she walked past your worth like it was disposable. And she did, because she could, because you let her, because being nice, without the spine of self-worth behind it, isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. Women don't respect men who abandon themselves. They use them, they talk to them, they ask them for favors, but they don't feel the pull of deep desire. That pull comes from a different place, from a man who speaks truth, even when it's uncomfortable, from a man who says no without explaining, from a man who doesn't apologize for taking up space, from a man who is kind, yes, but not at the cost of his power. You thought being the one who understands her would win her heart, but she never wanted someone to understand her. She wanted someone who could lead her, and you can't lead when you're constantly following her emotions. You can't lead when your schedule bends around her whims. You can't lead when your entire identity is wrapped around making sure she's okay. You're not her protector, you've become her emotional assistant, and she doesn't crave that. She might lean on it, she might depend on it, but she doesn't desire it. Desire is built on distance, on presence, on unpredictability, not in your character, but in your energy. She wants to feel like she can lose you if she stops showing up. The moment she feels like you'll always be there, no matter how she treats you, the desire dies. And it doesn't come back. No amount of flowers, texts, sweet gestures, or heartfelt messages will resuscitate what was never rooted in tension. If you're the nice guy, the truth is, you trained her not to want you. But here's the liberation. You can retrain the world to see you differently. Start by drawing lines, not with rage, with clarity. Start by valuing your time, not as currency for affection, but as proof of your standards. Stop being the emotional first responder for women who never earned your devotion. Let them wonder where you went. Let them feel your absence, not to manipulate, but to honor the value of your presence. Shift your energy inward, create, move, build, not for her, for you. Because the more you become the man you've always imagined, the less you tolerate being anything less in the eyes of others. That's how attraction works. When you stop begging to be seen, you become impossible to ignore. The nice guy dies when the man inside him wakes up. When he finally decides that being wanted is not the same as being needed. That love isn't a reward for obedience, it's a reflection of alignment. You don't need to become cruel. You need to become clear. Clear on what you bring, clear on what you require, clear on who earns access to your energy. And when you do, something radical happens. She'll see you again. Maybe not the same one who held her purse and picked her up at 2 a.m., but the man who suddenly doesn't flinch when she threatens to leave. The man who says, "I love you, but I love myself more." And in that moment, she'll feel what you've always wanted her to feel. Not guilt, not pity, but pull. Real, visceral, emotional pull. Not because you became someone else, but because you finally became someone she respects. That's how nice guys stop finishing last. Not by changing their hearts, but by finally protecting them. That's why I created the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, for the man who's finally ready to stop being chosen last, to stop repeating the same patterns, and to start leading his life with clarity, strength, and peace. If you've ever asked yourself why she lost interest, why you keep ending up in the same situations, why your kindness gets overlooked while others get chased, this book was written for you. It breaks down the exact principles you were never taught, the mindset shifts that transform how women see you, and the timeless strategies that make you respected without losing your heart. It's linked right below in the description, and once you have it, It's yours forever. This isn't a book you forget to read or a video you scroll past. It's a blueprint you return to every time you need to remember who you are. This is where your transformation begins. Number 3. She categorizes you immediately. From the very first interaction, long before you've even decided if you like her, she's already sorted you, boxed you, defined you, and in her mind, you're no longer a question, but a certainty, because she's not analyzing your soul, your dreams, or your heart. She's reading signals, clues, micro-expressions, posture, tone, eye contact, how fast you text back, whether you ask her questions or talk about yourself too much, whether you lead or follow, and based on those signals, she decides, is this man the leader, the emotional sponge, the provider, the plaything, the placeholder, or the backup? And the moment she locks you into one of those categories, it is almost impossible to break out, because from that point forward, everything you do only confirms her initial label. If she pegs you as the emotional support guy, every moment of kindness, every time you're available to listen, every moment you comfort her after she runs back from another man, reinforces her belief that you're there to serve, not to lead, not to command her admiration, but to carry her burdens, and you'll convince yourself that being useful is the same as being wanted. But deep down, there's a quiet ache when she calls you sweet, but never seductive, when she thanks you for being understanding, but doesn't light up at the thought of seeing you, because you never set the tone. You waited for hers, and she felt it, and women don't want to lead that dance. They want to feel pulled, drawn, chosen by someone whose energy demands respect without needing to shout. And yet you kept offering more value, thinking that if you just stayed consistent, she would one day change her mind. But what you missed is that you never started as a question in her head. You started as an answer she felt in her gut. And from that moment on, she couldn't unsee you through that lens. And if she placed you in the provider box, your generosity became expected, not appreciated. Your gifts turned into obligations, not surprises, because she never felt the need to earn you, and what's given freely without challenge is rarely treasured. And if she saw you as the entertainer, your humor became the glue, not your presence, not your strength, but your jokes, your stories, your ability to distract her from her life. Not to offer her a new one, but to make her forget the one she didn't like. And eventually even that grows old, because the man who only amuses her never gets taken seriously, and the tragedy is, you gave her your full self, but you didn't give her the challenge of earning it. And women don't bond with ease. They bond through pursuit, through elevation, through knowing they've won something valuable. And the moment she feels you're already emotionally sold, you lose that edge, and that edge is what keeps her engaged, because without it, the story is over. The mystery dissolves, the polarity fades, and what's left is a predictable gentleman who waits for cues, who asks for permission, who walks on eggshells to not offend her, and you'll never hear her say it. But that version of you quietly drains her, because every woman, whether she admits it or not, longs to feel something she can't quite explain. A thrill, a direction, a force, and that force is never born in a man who waits to be seen. It's born in the man who knows what he's worth before she decides it. And the worst part is, once you realize you've been boxed, every attempt to shift out of it feels like desperation, because by then she knows your moves, your tells, your limits. And she's already decided what you are and what you'll never be. So the solution is not to fight your way out. It's to never walk in that box in the first place. And that starts with how you carry yourself, with how you speak, with how you decide to qualify her rather than beg to be qualified. Qualified with the tone that says, I don't need this, but I'm open to seeing what value you bring. And that tone will confuse her at first, because most men rush to please, but you'll be still, collected, selective, and she'll notice. And if she doesn't, You don't chase, you walk, because the man who walks knows he doesn't live to be categorized. He lives to be chosen by those wise enough to recognize his value, and that value never gets boxed. Number 4. She follows strength, not vulnerability. There is a pain men feel that's too deep to name, a pain that comes from the moment he bares his soul to her, thinking he's building intimacy, thinking vulnerability is the bridge to her heart, only to see her pull away, not in anger but in emotional absence, in withdrawal, in those faint shifts of energy that speak louder than her lips ever could. And you sit there wondering, didn't she say she wanted honesty? Didn't she ask me to open up? And yes, she did, but what she didn't tell you is that her attraction to you was never born in how soft you could be, but how anchored you are in the face of chaos, how steady you remain when things unravel. Because when you expose every scar in the hope of closeness, when you place your burdens at her feet and hope she'll carry them with you, what you may not realize is that she starts to see you not her rock, but as her project. And she never signed up to be your therapist, your mother, or your emotional caretaker, even if she said she could handle it. And so you watch the connection fade, not because she stopped caring, but because you changed position, from leader to dependent, from presence to plea, and she starts to see you through new eyes, not because your pain made you less of a man, but because you handed over your frame hoping she'd give it back wrapped in empathy. And now she doesn't feel what she used to, because the current shifted from admiration to obligation, and obligation is the death of romance. And every time you mistake emotional dumping for emotional bonding, you weaken her trust in your strength, not because you cried, not because you hurt, but because you didn't return from it with clarity. Because strength isn't about never falling, it's about how quickly you rise. And if your openness doesn't come with direction, if your sharing doesn't come with structure, if your emotion isn't tempered by action, she feels lost. And when she feels lost, she leads. And when she leads, she resents you, even if she never says it out loud. And the hard truth is, she wants a man who feels but doesn't falter, who aches but keeps moving, who knows how to bleed in private but show up whole. And that doesn't mean you fake confidence. It means you own your pain, carry it without needing applause, without asking her to save you, because no woman wants to save a man. She wants to follow him, to feel protected in his energy, to trust his emotional navigation. And the only way that happens is when you process, rebuild, and return stronger than you were before. And that strength doesn't mean silence, it means sovereignty. It means you speak truth when needed, but you never outsource your healing to her approval. You never beg for her understanding like it's oxygen, because the moment you make her your emotional oxygen, she starts to suffocate. And this is the part no one tells you. Women crave vulnerability with strength, not vulnerability for validation. And when you confuse the two, you lose her admiration, because the same tears that melt her heart when she'd buy a man with self-command turn her cold when she'd buy a man who needs her reassurance to function. And the way back isn't to close up again. It's to refine your outlet, to know who earns access to your depth, to reserve your rawness for those who respect the weight of your words, and to give her not your wounds, but your wisdom, not your chaos, but your clarity. And when she sees you stand tall, even after you've been broken, when she sees you rebuild without seeking her permission, she feels safe. Not because you're unshakable, but because you shake and keep standing, because you are the lighthouse. And when she senses that, she follows, not because you told her to, but because her soul instinctively aligns with your direction. And in that space, respect and desire fuse into something unshakable, and you no longer beg to be loved. You become the man she loves to follow. Number 5. Women test you. There's a moment in every man's life where he feels everything was going right. She smiled, leaned in, responded, opened up, and then out of nowhere she shifted, questioned him, poked at his decisions, made a sarcastic comment, accused him of not caring, challenged his authority, pulled back slightly just to see what he would do. And it feels unfair, confusing, emotionally jarring, especially for the man who believes relationships should be calm and rational, who wants things to make sense, who just wants peace and consistency. But what he doesn't yet know is that this is the test, not a game, not a punishment, not even conscious manipulation, but something wired into her core, a pressure she feels to challenge the emotional structure around her, not because she wants to break it, but because she wants to know it won't break on its own. And every word she says, every passive jab, every strange withdrawal, every emotional spike is a probe, a poke, an unconscious question asking you, are you who you say you are when things shift? Are you steady when I lose center? Can you hold frame when I become chaotic? And most men fail not because they're weak, but because they don't understand the nature of the test. They react, they explain, they apologize unnecessarily, they raise their voice to regain control, or they shrink to avoid confrontation, but both paths lead to the same destination: lost respect, because she's not looking for a perfect man. She's looking for one who doesn't flinch when his authority is questioned, who doesn't change his tone just because she's emotional, who doesn't beg for understanding when she becomes irrational. Because when you become emotionally reactive to her volatility, she no longer feels safe. She feels like she has to take the lead. And the moment she leads, the dynamic shifts and her attraction erodes. And it's not always loud. Sometimes the shift is quiet, in a look, in how she responds to your touch, in how fast she texts back, in the way she starts withholding affection without explanation. And it's in these moments that most men panic, not because of the withdrawal itself, but because they fear what it means. They feel the loss of validation, the loss of comfort, and they try to repair the bond with words, with gifts, with desperate gestures, not realizing they're failing the one test that matters. Can you stay composed when the relationship tilts? Can you keep your center when she spins off hers? Because what she's actually searching for is proof that she doesn't need to mother you emotionally, that your masculinity isn't a mask that falls the moment tension rises. And when you learn to see these tests for what they are, you stop reacting and start leading. You don't explain your worth. You demonstrate it through stillness. You don't over-apologize for boundaries. You stand on them. You don't ask for her to calm down. You show calm. And she feels that difference in her nervous system before her mind can explain it. And now she leans back in, not because you manipulated her, but because you reminded her, through presence, not persuasion, that she's safe in your direction. And the deeper truth is this: she'll keep testing you as long as she feels the need to confirm your strength. And the moment you consistently pass, the tests decrease, not because she's changed, but because she trusts. And the only way to earn that trust isn't through comfort, but through consistency. And if you want to build a bond that endures, stop reacting to her tests and start refining your frame. And you'll find that what used to feel like chaos now becomes confirmation. Confirmation that she's still invested enough to challenge you, and that your job is never to stop her from testing, but to become the kind of man who no longer fears them. Number 6. Your resources are tools, not tokens. There's a harsh awakening that most men never see coming, and it starts when they realize that everything they've given, every dinner paid for, every trip booked, every favor done, every time they covered the bill without hesitation, wasn't building love. It was building an expectation, a lifestyle, a habit in her mind that this is just who you are, that you provide, that you'll always step up. And slowly, without words, she begins to see you less as a man and more as a source of stability, a source of experiences, a source of comfort. And it doesn't happen all at once, but over time, her gratitude turns into indifference, her appreciation into entitlement, and you find yourself doing more, giving more, hoping she'll smile the way she used to, but she doesn't. And it's not because she's heartless, it's because you trained her to see your giving not as value, but as currency to be expected. And now, when you pause or hesitate, she gets upset, not because you owe her, but because that's the dynamic you established, and now you feel stuck, resentful, unappreciated, because deep down, you know she wouldn't be this loyal if the money stopped, if the favors dried up, if the lifestyle you gave her suddenly reset. And you lie to yourself, saying she loves you for you, but you feel the truth in the way she lights up more at gifts than at your presence, in the way she says thank you but avoids intimacy, in the way she talks about your success more than your soul. And this is where men collapse, not because they're broke, but because they realize their wealth never made them wanted. It made them useful, and usefulness without emotional leverage is not love. It's logistics, it's economics, it's a transaction. And the longer you stay in this cycle, the more you erode your worth in her eyes, because she doesn't fall in love with your resources. She falls in love with how those resources are tied to your identity, your vision, your values. And when you give without boundaries, you communicate that her affection is more important than your self-respect. And that imbalance slowly poisons the bond, because deep attraction isn't built on what you provide, but on who you become when you do it with purpose, and when you reclaim that purpose, when you use your resources as tools, not to win her over, but to amplify experiences that are already rooted in genuine connection. You shift the dynamic from dependency to respect. And that respect is the only real path to sustained intimacy, because once she senses you value your energy more than her approval, she starts treating your giving as a privilege, not a right. And now she leans in, not because of what you offer, but because of how rare it is to find a man who offers with intention, not desperation. Number 7. Her actions are her real words. There comes a point in every man's story where he clings to what she said more than what she did, where her sweet nothings echo louder than her cold distance, where the memory of her words, "I love you, I'll never leave, you're my everything," hold him hostage, while her actions erode every piece of his soul. And he tells himself she's just busy, she's stressed, she's figuring things out. But deep down, he knows, because her body language shifted, her texts got shorter, her kisses became colder, her presence turned into obligation. And still he hopes, because to accept that she's left emotionally is to admit that everything he believed about love was built on illusion. But the truth is brutal. Words mean nothing if they're not backed by effort, and women speak with energy long before they open their mouths. And when you stop watching her lips and start watching her behavior, you'll see the truth you've been avoiding. She checks out in phases, first in curiosity, then in engagement, then in loyalty, and the final phase is contempt. And by the time you notice, she's already left you in her mind, and nothing you do, no grand gesture, no emotional confession, no act of desperation will bring her back. Because you waited too long, you ignored the signs, you let your emotions blind your perception. And now the cost isn't just her presence, it's your self-worth, because you gave more trying to repair what wasn't yours to fix. And this is the moment where most men break, not because they were wrong to love her, but because they believed love was enough to change a dynamic that had already died. But when you start honoring actions over promises, when you stop tolerating inconsistency just because you're afraid to be alone, you step into a new version of yourself, one who doesn't chase words but values patterns, who doesn't believe potential but requires demonstration. And in doing so, you raise your standard not just for women, but for yourself. Because the man who ignores reality to preserve fantasy always pays in time, in pain, and in dignity, and you've paid enough. It's time to collect what's yours, your power, your clarity, your freedom, and the first step is the hardest. Stop listening to what she says and start responding to what she shows. You've just heard the truth most men will never be brave enough to face. Truth that could have saved years of confusion, heartbreak, and quiet resentment. Now it's your turn to choose. Keep living on autopilot, hoping she'll finally see your worth, or take back control and become the man who never has to beg to be loved. The Stoic relationship blueprint is more than a book. It's your weapon, your wake-up call, your manual to stop being ignored, walked over, or used for what you give instead of who you are. It's linked in the description, and once you own it, it's yours for life. Comment, "I choose power," if this hit you deep. Like the video, subscribe, and help wake up another man before he loses more years to illusions.